Hi guys, Samantha from Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a paperweight out of polymer clay and resin. So I'm going to actually be showing a petri dish technique with the resin, which you'll see later, and a few of you asked me a while back on how to include resin with polymer clay. So today I'm going to teach you how to do that. So first we are going to want to create our border for our resin bezel, and so you're going to need some metallic polymer clay. Any brand will work, so Primo is fine for this, but I do want to be using Cernit today. So I'm going to be using Cernit Silver, Steel and Hematite. And what we're going to do is we're going to do almost like a mini Skinner blend, and you'll see what I mean. So just take those once they have been conditioned, which they have, and just stack them. And actually, I've done that the wrong way around, sorry about that. It should be from darkest to lightest. There we go. And again, as I said, you do not have to use Cernit. Any metallic polymer clay will work. Okay, and I know that I've created scraps here. If you don't want these sorts of scraps, make sure that your clay is trimmed to size before stacking them, but we will be using this for the backing. So just take those and just stack them again, so that it's almost like a Mokume Gane, and we will use that a little later on. Okay, now this needs to be run through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. Before I do that, I would like to thin it out a little bit with my roller. Like so. Okay, then I'm going to run it through. And that's now my thickest setting. I'm going to run it through my middle setting, and this is taking it down to about 1 millimeter thick. Okay, and again, trim those edges so that they're nice and neat. Then cut in half and stack. Okay. Then I'm going to run that through my thickest setting, and that's all we're going to do. Then we're just going to trim these edges again. So just stacked it so that we have the colours going through twice each. Okay, and now we're ready to make a mica shift. So it's kind of Mokume Gane mixed with a mica shift. It's a bit of an interesting thing. Now I'm going to be using my polymer clay texture stamp Frozen Fractures. Okay, and now the important thing to do when you are working with a polymer clay texture stamp is to make sure to dust the top of the stamp with some cornstarch, and I have some ready just over here. Just need to give it a light dust. And you do have to do this with most stamps. There's an exception, such as the silicone stamps that I buy. You do not have to use cornstarch on that, but just do a test to see if the clay sticks in the clay, and generally you will need to use cornstarch. There we are. Now I want it to be silver side down inside the stamp, and instead of dusting the top with cornstarch, I'm going to be using a sponge so that this is still sticky after we're done. So just position this so that it is in the right spot, and then I've got a nice wet sponge over here. It's not soaking wet, it's just damp so that it's not going to stick to the clay. Then I advise standing up and pressing on that sponge to get the clay into the stamp. And now the reason I've got the sponge is because I do not want the clay to stick to my fingers and come out the stamp while I'm pressing on it. So you can see it doesn't stick at all. So that is why I use a sponge. But the reason I do not put the cornstarch on the back so that it doesn't stick to my fingers is because then the clay remains non-stick afterwards, whereas with the sponge it's just non-stick while you're using a sponge. Okay, and I'm just making sure I've got a very nice impression. Okay, and keep in mind you can use any texture you want for this. Okay, I'm just checking that's pressed in properly. And I'll lift that up. And now when you're working with this, with the clay, I find that the best way to get it out of the stamp is to lift up all edges, like so. And you'll find some edges stick a little bit more than others. And just very gently work it out of the stamp. And this one's stuck a little bit. I should have probably put a little bit more cornstarch in it. There we go. But this actually gives me a moment to show you what to do if you do have clay stuck in it. So ideally I probably should have put more cornstarch on the clay, and if you're really worried about it sticking, you can put it on the clay side that's going to be going into your stamp. But let's say you have this and you have clay stuck in your stamp. Best way to remove it is to take something like a skewer, get rid of the major bits, like so. Then bring over a toothbrush and some alcohol. Any strength of alcohol will work for this. I like to use the 99% alcohol, but any strength will work. And the reason I use it is because it actually dries out the clay. And then you can use a toothbrush to just remove that. Never bake your polymer clay stamps with polymer clay inside them, because that will just bond to the stamp and you will essentially end up with a new texture. Okay, then go wash that underwater, clean your side, and I'll show you how it looks after we're done. And here we are, nice and clean, no problems with it at all. So that is how you clean your polymer clay stamp if you happen to get clay in it. So I'm actually kind of glad that happened, because I'm sure some of you might be having a little bit of trouble with that. And that's generally what I like to do with any stamp if I get clay stuck in it. So in the meantime, here's what this looks like. We've had a little bit peel away here, but not much at all. So it's no side effects, so that's fine. Right, so now you just stick it down onto the clay, like so. And you can press down a bit on the texture, that's fine. Then just trim away these edges, and again, we are going to be using that for the backing later on. Okay. Then grab a flexible blade, like this one, and then start to shave away your pattern. And I'm going a little deeper than the actual pattern, which is fine because I really want to reveal those layers underneath. So because you're using metallics, you're going to end up with a mica shift, but you'll also end up with some clay showing through, like so. So you'll also end up with almost like a Mokume Gane effect. So it's a double effect. And just continue shaving until you are happy with your effect. Don't go too deep if you can avoid it. If you do go too deep, it's not going to be a train smash. And then you can see what a beautiful effect we're getting out of that. I just want the hematite to show through a little bit. I don't want it to be a very dominant colour. I want it to just be a side note that comes through every once in a while. Okay, and here is how it looks. Now you might find a little cracking while you're doing this. That is actually quite normal, so don't worry about it. Once you've removed all of the bits and pieces, we will fix up that crackle by using some plain printing paper and just giving it a good burnish. And this will flatten out the whole thing. And now keep in mind that this does not look anywhere near as good as it's going to look once we've given it a sand buff and then put a layer of resin over the top of it. It's going to have a lot more depth to it when we are done with that. just making sure I've got a good burnish on there. And it should feel completely flat. And those cracks actually add to the effect because we're going for kind of like an ice-like effect on this one. This is a good winter project. Again, you can use any stamp you want and you can change the theme to what you would like. Alright, and I'm just checking to make sure it's nice and smooth. You can check from the side. Looks all good. Okay, then we're going to pick that up and we're just going to gently give it a stretch. And this is why I'm using an organic pattern, because I want to give it an organic effect. Just by giving it a light stretch, or just distort it a little bit. Yep, then I'm just going to bring over this, see how much more I need to do just to get it to fit nicely. Okay, that looks good. Put that to the side, and now we're just going to work on that backing quickly. So bring over all of your scraps, and I'm going to actually break those up a bit. Don't need them to be together. Then just mix that all together, like so. So one big piece, because we want this to be fairly thick. For a nice Petri dish resin effect, you want your bezel to be quite thick. Now my camera's not focused, so let me get that focusing on you. There we are. Sorry about that, I'm not actually sure how long that wasn't focused for. Apologise for that. Okay, then we're just going to roll that. Like so. Give it a twist. Give it a roll again. And then I'm just going to chop that into sections. Again. There we are. And that's just going to break up the colour a bit. Because I want a little bit of each colour in here. Roll that into a solid ball again. Then out into a log. Like so. And then twist. And we're going to give this a sand as well when we are done. And possibly a coat of resin as well. And remember to twist these ends as well. Okay, and I'm just going to squish it back up on itself. And I'm actually just going to get rid of these ends because they never look quite as good as the rest. Okay, and then I'm just going to squish that down. I'm trying to get into a plug so that we can roll it out into a sheet of clay. And you might actually end up preferring this to the mica shift that we did. So you can decide later on which side you like the best, and that will be the side that we have the best effect on as far as the resin's concerned. Okay, now I'm going to run that through my big set. And here's what we're left with. So choose the side that you like the best. I like this side the best. And place that on the back of your mica shift, like so. Then grab a piece of plain printing paper and another piece and give this a final burnish, partially so that it's stuck to the paper and also partially so that we have a nice texture on either side, nice smooth texture so that sanding is at a minimum. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to be cutting it backside facing up, because whenever you cut polymer clay you're going to end up with a very slight dome. So So I'm going to be cutting from the back side. But before I do that, I do just want to trim the front, just so that I know where to cut, because otherwise I could end up with some mistakes. So I'll just burnish that again, lift from the front. You can see here I do need to trim. Just going to gently trim that. Like so. So that I have just the mic shift showing. Okay. Then burnish it again. Flip. Peel. And then I'm just going to get this into the right spot. And this is a 7.5 centimeter in diameter circle, and this is a 6 centimeter in diameter circle. And now I want to get this exactly in the middle. Okay. And then I always cut out the middle first, and then I press on the outside. Okay, and now this is quite a large space to work with, so you can roll with your roller to get it to cut properly. And this is just because it's a large space for your hands to work with. And now they're both the same height, so by doing this you're not going to be causing any issues. Just going to make sure that you have a nice clean cut. You should be able to see it start to come through on the other side. So I might just give it a final press around the edges, just to make sure. And then I'm going to remove the inside first. And then you'll see that the outside might move a bit. So then what you can do is you can just smooth that back down with your fingers. And then gently remove the outside. And this is because it's on the paper, it will stick slightly to the cutter. That is completely normal. And now don't worry about it distorting a bit, that's very easily fixed by grabbing your cutter and gently moving it back into the right spots. And then I like to go and I just like to rub around the edge to get it flattened out. Okay, and then that should be nice and circular. And now any edgy bits like that we can worry about after this has been baked. So I'm going to put that in the oven for a full hour at Sonet's recommended temperature. And this one we have some left, so I'm going to be making a smaller version that we could use as a fridge magnet or something like that. Okay, so just grab your paper again, press that down. Give it a quick burnish to make sure that it's stuck down. Okay. And the one that we just made had a very thin border. This one we're going to make a bit thicker. Okay, cut down. Then I want to get this 3.5 centimeter in diameter circle in the middle. Okay. Press down. And this one there's enough space for my fingers to do it, so I don't have to worry about using a roller. Okay. Now I'm just going to remove the outside, might as well do that. And then I'll give the inside a spin, and then I'll give the outside a spin. gently remove the centre, and I can now remove that. There we go. And now we have something that we could use for a pendant, fridge magnet, something along those lines. So we will worry about that and what we're going to do with it later on. For the moment, these two need to go into the oven for a full hour at pretty much recommended temperature. And now before I put them in the oven, I'm just going to check that this one is the right size. I want to make sure that it's circular. Okay, and then they can both go into the oven. Okay, and they're out of the oven, and I've let them cool. And now when they come out of the oven, you might want to press a tile down on top of them just to make sure that they cure flat, or cool flat actually is the correct term, because sometimes they can bend while they're in the oven. So here's the outsides, and they look quite nice. So now I'm just going to grab a craft knife, and we're very carefully going to trim around the outside to get rid of these bits. And they should come off pretty easily because they're very thin, small bits. But that needs to be trimmed off so that we get a nice clean finish with the resin. And repeat with the other one as well. And then when you are done with that, you will sand. And I actually think with these ones, I'm going to make this one, the border, the outside area here, with the stripes, and this one I think this one is going to be the border. So we'll have two that will look like that. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. When we're done here, you're going to take a bit of sandpaper, and I'm working with a 400 grit polishing paper. And you're just going to start to give this a sand. And this is fairly important. We are going to be pouring resin over the top, so it doesn't need to be a perfect sand, but you do want to get rid of stray metallic particles and bits like that. And you also want to give the back a fair sand. And also when I do this, just notice that I place one finger on top of the clay and then one along the side here, so that I'm sanding the side as well as I go. So you're getting two bits done in one. And just repeat with the other one as well. And then what you do is, after you've gone through with the 400, is you'll go up to 600 and all the way up to about an 8,000 if you can. You can stop after about a 1,000 if that's all you have. And wet dry sandpaper will work as well. Okay, and now just want to demonstrate something very quickly. If you can get on the inside here and sand those edges, that's great as well. And notice how flexible this is. When I'm using it, it will distort a little bit, but that's fine. It will bounce back into shape, so don't stress about it. Okay, I'm just making sure that I get these sides. Then I'll go through the other grits and I'll repeat with our second piece, and then we can actually move on to adding our resin. Okay, so they're all sanded. They've got a nice sheen to them, as you can see. Now the last thing that I would like to do is I would like to clean up these sides, and the best way to do that is to take our scraps again. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take that. I'm not even going to mix it into one colour. Run that in your hand so that it's nice, warm and soft. That's very important. You want it as soft as you can get it. And then take a small amount, squish it up against the side, and then smooth. Now this is not completely necessary. The sides look alright, but I just think it makes it look a bit neater. So I am going to do it. You do not necessarily have to do it if you're a little bit nervous about doing it, or if you're having a lot of trouble with it, because this technique's not the easiest, I will admit. It takes a bit of practice. And I'm just going to run along the outside. It's not really worth doing the inside, so that's going to basically be covered with resin. So just do the outside. And I don't think I'm going to do this one because I would like to show you the difference between the two. And also, since it's got a thinner rim, it's really going to be very difficult to do this along the edge. So I will probably just do it with this one and give it a bake. And it only needs to go into the oven for about 20 minutes at Sona's recommended temperature for this to stick. It's a very, very thin layer of clay. Okay, then when you're done, just take all of that clay out of the way. And then just use your finger or your palm to smooth along the edge to get it nice and smooth so that you don't have to worry about sanding it. And this will get rid of scraps and things like that. And you can go in with your finger to just do a little bit more detailed work if you find that there are some areas that are not looking so great. Yeah. And then I'll put that into the oven for about 20 minutes. And then we can move on to the resin. So in the meantime, while that is in the oven, we can work on this one. And this one I'm going to have the marble side with the Petri dish effect. Now, the thing with the Petri dish effect is the side that you work on. So for instance, if I had it facing this side up and I was putting the alcohol ink and stuff into the resin, the best effect would be on the back side. So whichever side you want to have the best effect on, that needs to be facing down, like so. Okay, then grab some tape. And I want you to place it, oops, this is actually the wrong side. I want you to place it on the side that you want the best effect to be on. Okay, start with a new piece because that one had clay on it. And just make sure to run along the edge here because you don't want any spills. That's quite important. And now keep in mind we're going to coat this with resin, so any bits that, any marks, so for instance, because we're using 2 pieces of paper here, oh not paper, tape, because we're using 2 pieces of tape here, it's going to be a little wrinkled, that's fine. Right now I'm just using a skewer, not my finger, because otherwise I get marks, just to press that piece of tape down. Like so. Okay, that looks to be well stuck. Then we're going to go from this side and just make sure to press along these edges so that it is nice and well stuck to the clay. Then put that to the side, and you would repeat with the other one whenever it comes out of the oven. And now I'm going to bring over the resin we're going to be working with. And I would recommend strongly using a 2-pot resin because UV resins can give trouble with this effect because, well, let me explain it quickly. If I bring over this, we're going to be working on it from this side up. You're going to pour resin in, then you could be putting alcohol inks in, which can thin out the UV resin, which can make its curing a little bit longer. Also, it means that you're going to have to put it in the UV light this way up, and you might find that the back side here does not cure because the alcohol ink will inhibit the UV light penetrating. So once this side is cured, you would have to put it up this way, and then you can find that you get little bubbles forming as the resin pulls back down. So it's just, I prefer to stay away from UV resin for this technique. So I'm going to be using ice resin today, and I'm using an ice resin plunger, which is much easier to use than the actual 2-part resin because it measures out it perfectly for you, which just makes your life easier. Okay, and I'm just judging how much I need. I'm going to need a fair bit for this project, so I'm just going to make sure I have enough. There we go. And this ice resin plunger is refillable. So if you are watching this on Patreon, please do check back on some of my old videos. You will find a tutorial on how to refill that resin. So you don't have to buy it over and over again. Okay, then all you do is you just take a paddle pop or a skewer or something along those lines and just mix this until you find that there is no streaks, and then for another 30 seconds at least after that. In total it takes about 5 minutes mixing. And you know what, I'm just nervous I don't have enough resin there. The last thing I want to do is have to mix up another bunch. Because this is refillable, I'm just going to squeeze out the entire lot. And that way I don't have to worry. And if I have extra, I always have some extra little beads on the side that I never got around to putting resin on, and so any extra resin goes onto those. Okay, so just continue stirring and I'll come back to you when it is not cloudy anymore. Okay, then I just let it sit for maybe around a minute or so after I finish mixing it, so that these bubbles will rise to the surface, and then I just blow on it with a straw. And that gets rid of a lot of the bubbles. Okay, then I'll bring over this and we can start working on it. So I'm just going to pour the resin into there. Okay, and I'll just stop short of what I think I'm going to need because I do not want to overflow it. I'd like to have all the edges touching in the right spots. See if it actually holds, if we've got any leaks. And it doesn't look like we have any leaks, which is excellent. I might gently make sure that that tape is stuck down well still. And you can see there's a little spot where there's some air bubbles coming through. Stuck that back down. And want just a little bit more resin in here. Okay. And the rest will be for the next one. Right, so now what I want to do is you just want to let that sit for maybe a minute or so, let those air bubbles rise, and then we can move on to the next step with the alcohol inks. So be sure to go and choose the alcohol inks that you would like to work with. Okay, so it's been sitting for a little while and a lot of the bubbles have already popped, but we just want to make one last pass. Okay, and the little bubbles really don't matter that much in this technique. If you're worried about those, you can always leave it for a little while longer to let those bubbles pop. But we really don't need to worry about that. So I want to show you the alcohol inks that I have. And now the one that I think is probably the most important is this Pinata ink. So hopefully you can read that on there. And I'll have it in the list of supplies. And that is opaque white. And then here's another Pinata ink. And you can choose any colour you want, but these are the colours that I have. And then I am going to be mixing brands of alcohol ink. That is perfectly fine as well. And then this is optional, you don't have to have it, but I think it adds a little bit of interest. Here's a mixative, and those are the ones I'm going to be using. Okay, so open those up to the side, and I like to open them up all before I start. And this is going to be fun. And now keep in mind I will repeat this process with the other one, except that I'm going to be doing it on the opposite side. Okay, and they're all opened up and ready to go. So I'm going to start with the light blue. Just going to drop in one drop. And if it's not coming through, it means that the hole is blocked. So I'm just going to get a piercing tool to fix that. Okay, so that should work now. There we are. Gonna do one drop there, and drop there. And you do not need a lot. Okay, then I'm going to add a white into each, and I'm going to add an extra white one there and there. Then I'm going to go over to the indigo, and this is a very strong colour, so you do not need a lot. That was too much. There. And then just continue adding. You do not need a lot. Don't go overboard with it. That's the trick. It's to not go overboard. The problem is you can't see what's happening. Now I'm just putting the mixative in there. And I'm just going to put in a little bit because that clouds up the surface, so I don't want to add too much. And maybe one more drop of blue here. Okay, and then I like to finish off with white because that is the best bit. Okay, and then I might just lift this up very carefully and look from the bottom. And it's looking quite good. But I do want to add more white. Sorry I can't show you that. And a bit more blue. And you can just see how that silver spread across the entire surface basically. Alright, and I think that will be enough. Might have gone overboard, we will see once it has cured. And this is going to take 24 hours to cure. If you put it in a nice warm spot, it will cure a lot quicker. So I'll pop that off to the side, and I will do the same with the other one. Okay, so they've been setting for around 12 hours, and here's what this one looks like from the back side. And you can see we need to do a little sanding over there, and here's what it looks like from the front. So you can see we've got a few wrinkles over there, hopefully the light can catch that. So we do need to take care of that. And this one's also been curing, so we will just lift that up, and you can see there's a wrinkle there as well. Because the resin did spill a little bit, you can see there hopefully. Okay, but it is cured enough, which is good. So now we can move on to the next step. Okay, so after a little bit of deliberation, I've decided I'm not sure I like this one all that much. If you do like it, all you need to do is put another layer of resin over the top to smooth this out. But I just feel like the stripes don't really work, and that's why I wanted to do the two to see which one looks the best. So when doing this technique, if you're going to work with a shape that is round, I would probably recommend going with a radial pattern, because if you look over here with the radial pattern, it actually looks better. So I think I'm going to scrap this one. It's okay to scrap your work. This brings up another thing. If it doesn't work and you're not happy with it, don't continue and waste your own supplies. If it doesn't work, put it in your scrap box, leave it alone, and maybe you can come back to it later. I usually come back to them after about a year or so, and then I see where the good ideas were, and I see where I needed to improve things. So that's just something to keep in mind. If things don't work, that's fine. That happens quite a bit. Now, I do want to clean this one up a bit. I've got a little bit of a stain over here that I would like to fix up, and then we will add some resin on the front here, and we will make a pendant out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just grabbing some 99% isopropyl alcohol. This is not necessary, you can just sand. I'm just going to spray it on my sanding paper, and this will help get rid of this alcohol here, along with sanding it. There we are. You can see that left a nice clean edge. Okay, and now this is going to be back, so we don't have to worry about that right now. So now we are going to be working with some UV resin to speed up the process, because we have already waited a while for this. I'm going to be using Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss. This cures pretty quickly and gives a beautiful dome. And it's okay to mix resin brands so long as they are completely cured and are not mixing into each other. Just look at how beautiful that becomes after it's been cleared up. There, I'll just let the camera sit on that for a moment. See, it looks beautiful. I'm just going to pour a bit more on there. That should be enough. And there you can see it's spreading. You get the sparkle, and it actually looks much better now. I was a little worried that the border would be a little dull, but I really need to start taking my own advice when I say to you guys, at least see how it looks finished, if it's all good with here. So this one I didn't like because you can see the edges are a little bit messy. I went a little bit too overboard with the alcohol ink, and I just thought that the border doesn't really match. It's not tying in with that radial pattern. However, this one I really did like. I was a little bit concerned about the border being a little dull, but you can see after putting the resin on it looks so much better. And you can see that mixing those colours into the mica shift to create a semi mica shift dash Mokume Gane really adds to the effect. Just looks really quite nice. There we are. Now I'm just going to scoop out that little bubble there. We don't want that. See if you can find any other bubbles. And after you've scooped out bubbles, put it into a UV lamp for about half an hour just to make sure that it's completely cured, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, and so here it is. You can see how beautiful that is now. And we've still got the back that looks like that, and that's alright. And I've decided that I don't want to use this as a pendant, I want to use it as a fridge magnet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place it down to see if it's okay with it. And I've got some little magnets over here, and they come in a sheet like this. And now if you can get the ones that aren't sticky, that's great. If you get the sticky ones, you need to clean off the sticky back, because we don't really want that. And I'm just going to choose some spots for this so that it's going to sit nicely. Okay, that will work. So then take the sticky sides, or the side that would have been sticky, and I've mixed up a little bit of resin and I've let it sit for maybe around 3 hours, so you can see it's nice and thick. And I'm going to use this instead of glue. You can use Gorilla Glue if you want. I'm a little bit more confident in the resin because it bonds to the clay really well, and it will bond to this quite well. And it won't react with the clay in any weird way. Okay. I think I might have a little bit too much there. I don't want to have too much resin on there. There we go. And I'm not using UV resin because UV resin needs to have light on it to cure. I'm just going to move this out of the way, and I have a little bit of resin spills over here, so I don't want that getting on the front. Going to place that down. And so this is going to take a little while to dry. And that's fine. We're going to leave this for about 12 hours to dry. And I'm just positioning it in the right spot. And you just want to leave it like that. Leave that to dry for around 24 hours, or at least 12 before using it. And I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, and here it is all finished. So you can see how beautiful that is. And here is the back. Now, this is something that's going to not get a lot of wear and tear, so these magnets will stick on. This is not what the resin is not a seal that I would recommend if you're planning on putting magnets on pendants, which are going to get a lot of wear and tear. Only if you're going to be using fridge magnets. If you're going to be using magnets on the back of pendants, bangles, anything that's going to get a lot of use, you would want to use a much stronger glue that you can count on it being really strong. Whereas this will work really well for it just to sit on the fridge and not be tampered with too much. So that is basically it for this tutorial, so I do hope that you enjoyed it. Remember, you can use any technique you want for the bezel setting essentially, and you can use any colour you want for the inside. So play around with it and see what you can make and have some fun with it. And as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.